Welcome back to another episode of Meredyth with a Y. I am your host, Meredyth Willits, and today I have on Julian Bermudez, and he transforms suffering into self-trust and all other sorts of good stuff that we're talking about here today, so stay with me. Hello, everyone. This is Meredyth with a Y, and I am your host, Meredyth Willits. Today we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Julian, thank you so much for being on. I so appreciate this, and I'm excited to talk because you have a lot of great topics on your website that I was like, okay, there's some good meat and potatoes we can talk about. So thank you for being here.
Hi, Meredyth. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, right off the top in your bio and such, you transform suffering into self-trust, agency, and inner liberation. So what does all that mean?
Yeah. So when we go through trauma, specifically when we're children, which I would define as bad things happening that shouldn't happen, or good things that should happen that don't happen, I think that just about every single person in our current society is going through that in some form or another. When we go through it, we adapt to it in whatever means are available to us. We might disconnect from our emotions. We might suppress our emotions. We might go away mentally. And these adaptations pile up on top of each other over the years. And so an adaptation from the past that might have served us and might have helped us, might have even saved us, becomes a source of great suffering later in life. And most of the times this is unconscious. So what I do is I help people build awareness of these patterns and adaptations and cultivate agency and choice making and responsibility and how we're going to act these pains that we're carrying around from the past out today, so that way we may liberate ourselves from those old patterns.
And I see this. I myself am a life coach. I do energy work in that, so I'm completely in alignment with everything you're talking about and what you represent. For me, I always just thought, well, this is who I am. I'm a nice person. I like to get along with people. I don't want to make waves. And what I realized is that was actually a coping mechanism that I had acquired, absorbed, learned, whatever you want to call it, to stay safe. And how many people do you think, besides everyone, is running around, walking around, believing that this is just who I am? I'm just neurotic. I'm just afraid. I just don't want to cause waves. I just have a hard time speaking up for myself. But from what you're seeing, saying, and the work that you do, you're saying I don't fix people. I allow people to let all the garbage fall off of them and then remember who they are.
Yes, precisely, Meredyth. Each one of these adaptations is like a layer that piles up on top of us. And at the very core would be who we truly are. But each one of these adaptations that pile on is what we might call a personality trait. So very similar, very common one that you just mentioned is I make myself agreeable. I try to get along. Some people might call it people pleasing in some ways. I might sacrifice myself. I might sacrifice my boundaries. I might sacrifice my expression. I might sacrifice my emotions. I might stuff them down in order to not rock the boat and keep everybody happy. What this really signals to me is that at some point, as you mentioned, it was learned. It was an adaptation to something that was happening in the environment. At some point, we weren't safe. At some point, if we would have expressed our emotions or had boundaries or just been who we were, it would have put us in some sort of jeopardy. And usually we can figure out where that came from pretty easily. So what we want to do is we want to become very aware of this pattern of when we're trying to do this and for what means we're trying to meet by doing that. So am I trying to preserve my relationships? Am I trying to make sure that I don't get abandoned? Am I trying to protect myself in some other way? And then we want to know, where does this come from? Where did I learn this? And what circumstances were happening when I learned this behavior?
And I'm amazed. When I first started doing energy work, it was one of the first things I learned was from a client was they were treated really well when they were sick. That was like
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
only time their parents were kind to them
Mhm.
and showed them love. And this person, as an adult, I think she was in her 30s at the time, was just like this chronically always something was wrong with. She's always at the doctor's office. She's always having issues. And
Mhm.
and it was hard to say to her, sis, you benefit. It's a secondary benefit. It's an unconscious, because that's a lot of times I don't think people realize is you're not calling them out and saying you're a people pleaser, you're a whore. It's secondary. You're not even aware you're doing it. It's just the way that your self
Right.
exists on this planet. You're not people pleasing on purpose. You're not being agreeable on purpose. You're not making yourself sick on purpose. It's truly who you've become. And that's what I love about what you do is you're like, all right, we need to like heal, we need to get through all the layers of who you've become by way of abuse and toxicity and survival and find the you that lives inside. And I love with clients going, do you remember when you were 3 or 5? Remember when you were just with your friends and that lightness? That's still in there. And I think as adults, so many of us forget lightness. They forget being jovial or skipping or riding a roller coaster because the heaviness is so great. And so you're out in Portland, Oregon. What methods are you using at your facility? Like, what do you do? Someone calls you, they're like, all right, I'm sick of being XYZ, toxic, traumatized, in bed all day, anxious, depressed, etc. What do you guys do over there?
Mhm. Well, first thing is you mentioned a very important dynamic that a lot of people might have, which is we can become addicted to being sick
Yeah.
because we have a belief about ourselves, which is that I only get the care when I'm sick. So I have to be sick in order to get my attachments. And again, that goes back to probably very early in life when our bodies were developing, when our emotional circuits, when our nervous system, when our perception and worldview were developing. We might not have had the connection that we were hopelessly dependent on. And when we got sick, we got a little bit of it. So we grab onto that as an adaptation. And then it helps us in that short term, but it provides us with great suffering later in life.
Yeah, because then you're just like you're getting a loop. You're in a
Exactly.
loop. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do, I call it psychedelic therapy. The word psychedelic is broken into two parts, psyche and delic. Psyche being all of the immaterial aspects of who we are. So our emotions, our mental patterns, our energetic patterns, our spirituality, so on and so forth. We might call it the soul, is what it's often referred to, or your mind in different contexts. So we have this immaterial aspect of who we are, and then delic is manifesting or emerging. So when you put this together with an experience, what you have is a deep connection to yourself. So what I want to do is that core that you mentioned a moment ago, which is inside of each and every one of us, which knows how to heal, it knows how to be authentic, it knows how to express emotions and have boundaries. That's inside of each and every one of us. We all have it. It can't be broken. It can only be disconnected or
Mm.
lost. And that disconnection is the biggest trauma itself right there. It's an adaptation to trauma, which I'll be happy to explain in just a moment.
I
So
love
what
that what you just said, a disconnection to self.
yeah, that is
That's just such a great visual, and it's so true. You know, I feel like you connect to self when you do yoga or go for a walk or drink your water, and then you disconnect, disassociate. I love this visual that's happening right now. You know, when you like dive into like junk food or
mhm,
alcohol or whatever else self destructive behavior, like I just love that you literally disassociate or disconnect from self.
right.
Thank you for that visual. It's so even like when you're losing your mind, like screaming or yelling or whatever the thing is that it's you. Thank you for the visual. I just love it. So go ahead. Sorry about interrupting you.
No. Well, what you're talking about are various addictions.
Mhm.
And I would define an addiction as anything that provides short-term relief, any behavior that provides
Mm.
short-term relief, but has long-term consequences or harm. So there's an inability to give it up because of that short-term relief. there's relapse, there's cravings, despite the harmful consequences that are associated with it. And so we can see this as an adaptation that we develop very early on. That person that you mentioned earlier became addicted to being sick. It
Yeah.
provided short-term benefits, short-term relief, but it causes harm later in life. When somebody is healing from an addiction, we call that recovery. They're in recovery. The word recover means to find something that you've lost. So when you heal an addiction,
Mm,
what are you recovering? What are you finding? It's that
self.
core. It's that core that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. And
So good.
And so the psychedelic experience where we connect deeply with ourselves can be met through so many means, just like you were just mentioning: yoga, meditation, fasting, eating healthy foods and water, sensory deprivation, being in nature. We can get there in so many ways. And that's what I try to do, is I try to help people rediscover or reconnect with their self. And that's where all the healing and all the wisdom is at.
When I was younger, so let's see here, it would have been, it was my 40th birthday. I ended maybe it was my 43rd birthday. Around then, I'm 52 now. I ended a 40-day fast, juice
Wow.
fast.
Hmm.
Did not even chew an olive. Okay. And went to 2 weddings. P.S. Going to a wedding on a juice fast, not always that fun. But I just decided that I was going to do this. You can't even imagine how many food commercials there are in the world when doing a juice fast, but you quickly learn. And the day I was coming out of the fast, the day I was breaking my fast, was my birthday. And I sat down to a plate of vegetables, steamed cooked vegetables, because you have to re-enter the food space gently. And as I was sitting down before I had taken my first bite, I got a text message from a family member. And it was like really like accusatory, and it was like really aggressive. And this person was just a bully in my entire life. And I went, delete, block, and I haven't spoken or texted or communicated or had anything to do with this person. Well, let's see, it would be, I think it was my 40th birthday. So over a decade. And what you're saying, this finding self in that moment post fast, that's so on point, because I believe in that moment I finally found at least a portion of myself that said, no more.
Hmm.
Like, we're not doing, I don't have to put up with your shit. I don't have to make myself small. I don't have to do this ever again. I'm safe and I'm an adult. And speaking of being an adult versus childhood, which is I think the difficulty is when you're a child, you really don't have the ability to stand up for yourself. You're relying upon parents. You're relying upon sometimes your abusers to keep you fed and clothed and housed and driving you to school or whatever the case is. And it's almost impossible to be a child of around abusive adults and not lose yourself. Like, is there a part of the human experience that almost says you have to do these things in some way? Is that a part of humanity, is to go through those first 18 years of, I don't know, acquiring garbage?
Well, that's not how it should be, but that is absolutely how it is today in our modern Western culture. It's very rare. You can still find examples where humans exist in their wholeness or in their purity in very isolated pockets around the world, usually in undisturbed hunter-gatherer style cultures that can still exist there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. When we're growing up, humans, for instance, are, as far as we can tell, the most dependent, immature, undeveloped species, and we're dependent for the longest amount of time. It
Hmm.
takes a human 3, 4 years to learn how to run, to where a horse learns how to run on their first day of life. So we really absolutely have to depend on our caregivers. And even further, humans develop mostly postnatally. So when we're learning how to regulate emotions, for instance,
Hmm.
we do so through physical touch with our caregivers. And the way that Dan Siegel, the neuroscientist, describes this developing of emotional regulation is, he calls it interpersonal neurobiology, which is a fancy word that says that our nervous systems, our emotional circuits, actually download information from the mature, regulated nervous system that's around us, which would be our parents or caregivers. So, in other words, we're completely dependent on the attachment with our parents. We can't survive without it. If you take a newborn baby and you keep them warm, you keep them fed, but you don't hold them, they will, their development will be stunted so badly that they'll most likely die. So we are
Mhm.
completely dependent on our attachments. The attachments are the first and foremost need that we have as children developing. The other and very important need that we have is to be authentic, to express our emotions, to have boundaries, to be uniquely who you are and uniquely who I am. And ideally, these two would go very well together. My individuality, my uniqueness, my human needs, my human characteristics would strengthen my attachments with my parents. It
Mhm.
would strengthen my attachments with my caregivers and my community. But in today's society, what we oftentimes see is our attachments are threatened by our authenticity. So when
Yes.
we, like any 2-day-old baby will
Or
let
are
you
at
know.
the authenticity are threatened by our attachments because we
Sure,
have to downplay who we are based on the need for an attachment or our parents' love, whatever. So I'll be a good girl. I won't be whatever so that I can continue to be loved, right? I mean,
precisely.
yeah.
Exactly. So there's a choice that's made very early in life, which is, which one of these two do I sacrifice? I can't survive without the attachments. I can survive without the authenticity. So I learn very early, suppress my emotions, suppress my boundaries, don't make waves, be agreeable, be, take care of my parents' emotional needs, whatever it is, everything to maintain these attachments. And so, yeah, this is very common. It's everywhere. This choice right here of attachments and authenticity is one of the most unconscious choices that we have to make at a very early age that continues to affect us later in life.
I mean, I just had someone in my office yesterday and the conversation was exactly what we're talking about here is grown person, making themselves small, hoping that everyone will like them.
Hmm.
And how much do we do, that in a day? I saw a video and it just every time I hear this statement, my brain just explodes. And it's when you are a people pleaser, when, making a boundary will feel violent.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I went, "Holy crap." Like, that's so true. Like, if you have a, unhealthy relationship with your dad and you make a boundary, it feels so aggressive. It feels like you're being mean.
Threatening.
Threatening, isn't I mean, I just it's so mind-blowing, but it does feel like you're being a mean person by just trying to have some sort of autonomy and feel safe in your own environment. And that statement just hit me so hard. What led you to do all of this? I'm sure you grew up in a very healthy household and that's why you found all of these things.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Takes one to know one, Julia. It takes one to know
Exactly.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, that's the reason why we're able to work with people who are also going through it, right? Is we've
Mhm.
experienced it ourselves. Yeah, so all of these things are inside of me as well. So when I work with somebody who has it, it's a reflection. I can see it inside of myself. I see a part of me in all the people who are also doing those things. So just like you spoke earlier, there's a part of you that developed very early in life. We might call this a protector. It was a part that developed somewhere probably in your childhood that said, be agreeable, don't make waves, make yourself small, take care of other people's needs before your own. And this is how we learned to get our needs met in a certain
Mhm.
way. So there's this part of us here that grows up and learns how to protect us. But when you reconnected with this other part of you that is closer to your whole, your center, that wisdom that's in there, is this part was no longer necessary. It didn't need to step up and protect you. You were able to protect yourself, despite the fact that it might feel threatening or dangerous. And at some point, we usually get to where we say, my authenticity is more important than sacrificing myself. And if my attachments are based on sacrificing myself or pleasing other people or not having boundaries, then those aren't attachments that I need to have in my life. And I think that we all go through something similar to that in some way or another. And of course, yeah, I've gone through it too.
Yeah. There is a trend now for this, estranged parents going no contact, things like that.
Hmm.
And I saw you wrote a blog about it on your website, a couple of them actually, that you've addressed this going no contact and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
I'm betwixt and between on it. There's a part of me that says your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your children are your greatest teachers. They're the ones that are going to push every last button that you have,
Hmm.
and you have made some sort of agreement, be it, spiritual or otherwise, to be challenged by them. And that challenge could be to go no contact and hold your boundaries.
Hmm.
What are you? So there's a part of me that says, yes, go no contact. There's a part of me that says, go low contact. And there's a part of me that says, allow yourself to be challenged to the point where you're like, you can do whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to go no contact, but I also don't care what you say. So
Yeah.
there's like, I'm kind of on the spectrum of all of that. Where do you sit with the estrangement thing that we're all doing now?
Hmm. Well, I think that we have to reconnect with our authenticity in whatever means we have available to us. And that can take whatever form we have to do in that moment. It doesn't have to be the one size fits all for all eternity. It can be whatever we need to do in that moment, and it can grow and evolve and develop and mature over time. For a lot of people, the abuse, the dynamics of pain in the family relationships are just so great, and they remain unchanged. So the only way for some people to protect themselves is to go no contact. And this is to go against all of our biological programming. Because again, when we're developing for the longest amount of time that we can see in this world, we're dependent on our connections with our relation with our parents and caregivers. We have emotional circuits that are programmed into us that are designed to help us connect and bond with our parents. And then we have other emotional circuits that are designed to put us in a state of panic when we become disconnected from them. For instance, we can see this in animals as well. Like if a baby bird falls out of its nest, it goes into a state of panic and it cries, cries, cries. So the mother will hear it, bring it back to the nest, pick it up and comfort and soothe it. We have that as humans as well. When we're babies and we need to be held, we cry, cry, cry. But if we don't get that need met, this panic never really goes away. So for us to disconnect by choice is to go into that state of panic and to go into that state of pain, that despair that we feel from losing that connection. So the only time that that really ever happens, I think, is when the pain of maintaining the connection is greater than the pain of separating. Ideally, our parents or our children or our siblings or whoever it is would also be willing to look at themselves and to look at their own emotional patterns and their own behavioral patterns, to take responsibility and accountability for how they treat themselves and how they treat others. And we
That'd be
could,
nice.
it would be, wouldn't it? And we can grow and develop together through that.
Yeah.
But not everybody does that.
I think so
So,
often we hear the I was a good parent, I did my best,
mhm,
that whole thing. And what I always say is, and it wasn't enough.
yeah,
Right. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like two things can be true. And I think
mhm,
that was a huge like aha moment over the past few years for myself and so many people around the world as we've been sharing with social media and we've learned so much. We've acquired so much more language and intelligence on these topics, is that two things can be true at the same time. Yes, you did your very best. And yes, it was still not enough. Yes, you sacrificed your entire life to raise your children. And yes, there was still damage done. Why do you think there's so much shame with parents? I mean, I like said to my son the other day, my oldest, I go, look, let's make a therapy appointment for the two of us. And you could tell the therapist and me all the shitty things that I did as your mom. And he goes, you won't be able to handle it. I'm like, yes, I will. I was 23 years old when I had you. I'm sure I've done some really stupid shit, but I had to be healthy enough and do the emotional intelligence work to go, you're not going to die. You're not the worst person in the world. You're not the devil just because you were a shitty parent at times. What is it about parents that have such a difficult time? It's so physically uncomfortable that they would rather allow their children to go no contact with them than just listen. Like half these parents don't even want to, they zero conversation about this. I did my best. I'm a horrible parent. Okay, whatever. And then they move on. Why is there so much shame and fear around having these conversations?
Yeah. Yeah, those dynamics are very common. I did my best, or a minimization, a denial, or a blame involved. Oh, they're just mad because they didn't get the video game or the new
Yeah.
pair of shoes.
Yep, he froze. Yep, you're frozen. Let's see if he comes back. Let's come back. This is the second interview I've had there that the Wi-Fi on the other person is not stable. And we were about to hear something so exciting about, and I'm sure he'll come back. If he doesn't, I will kick him out and then bring him back for everyone to listen to his response. Let's see here. We'll kick from studio and hope that he comes back. But yeah, there's so many parents that are like, oh, this is such a fad. This is such a phase. These people, they just want their cake and eat it too. And I am allowed to see my grandkids. And it's like, yeah, all those things are true, but you need to do the work. We need to fix this so that you're not screwing up your grandchildren, my children, or whatever, just example. And you have to have a conversation or there's no intimacy. And that to me is the biggest thing. When you have these surface relationships with parents and children, etc., and everyone's just sweeping everything under the rug and it's just super toxic, and the child has angst, or the parent has angst, or the sibling has angst, and there's all this unspoken toxicity, and maybe the one person wants to have the conversation and the other person refuses, that is not an intimate relationship. That is a relationship built on complete and utter BS. It's not real. You're just going through the motions, talking about the weather, talking about sports, but there's no intimacy. It's complete and utter garbage. And for me, like, what's the point there? What is the point? There's literally no point. But a lot of people want to continue to do that and have a bullshit relationship. And I just don't even see the point in it, because you're not really connecting. You're just living a lie. And so what's the point of even talking? My sister and I talk about these types of things all the time, about how if you're not having real conversations, then what's the point of the cute text? What's the point of, having a get together if you can't even have a conversation with somebody that's intimate, that's real, that's like, remember when that happened? That was really painful. And you don't have to beat a, what is it? Is it beat a dead horse? No, beat a horse to death. I forget. But you don't have to beat a dead horse. That's the words. You can have one conversation and move on from it. But I think the problem is that when these kids are bringing issues to their parents, the parents have shame or embarrassment or guilt, or it's like kryptonite. It's so bizarre. But what I love about what Julian's doing, he has a facility in Portland, Oregon, wherein he does, and he does it long distance as well, it remotely, as he does do one-on-one sessions. I'm hoping he comes back. I just sent him an email that said, come back. But he does one-on-one sessions, and he also does consulting and mentorship for professionals, trying to help people through psychedelic integration, which we didn't get to talk about outside of the fasting or meditation or yoga or whatever, to come back and reclaim self. And that's what I always say to my clients. I'm like, we're not trying to fix you. We're trying to get all the body armor, all the garbage that you've accumulated over your entire lifetime to find your way back to you, because the you that was born is amazing. The you that was born is creative and courageous and excited about life. The you that was born has curiosity and self-love and love for others. It's the world around you that's added the garbage and the anger and the chaos and the resentment. All that stuff is just armor that you put on to create a safe space inside of that armor to help you exist inside of the armor, which is protecting you from your mom or your dad or your sibling or the world around you or classmates or whatever, or your neighbors or whatever. You've created that persona. You've created that garbage. And through therapy or life coaching or psychedelics, there's a ketamine clinic down the street here from me. I was telling someone about that the other day. They're like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, down the street, ketamine clinic. Because what the ketamine does is it's like this psychedelic or whatever, and they have doctors and nurses that watch you, is it allows you to leave self, leave the ego, and view the world through non-egoic view, non-egoic eyes, and go, holy shit, I'm worried about all these things and none of them matter. None of this matters. I've created this whole anger system, this whole whatever, to try to protect myself, and none of it's real. And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about remembering who you are as a person. I don't know if he's finding his way back. He's in Oregon. I don't know if there's like bad, he might have bad cell service or whatever, because he froze a couple times during the beginning of the recording. So he might have bad Wi-Fi. Not really sure. I'll give him a few more minutes. But he has a website. I wrote it down here somewhere. Psychedelic-integration.net. Psychedelic-integration.net. And he and another woman, Claire, and their dog, Layla, are in Oregon. And this is what they do out there is, trying to find your way back to you, find your way back to your inner you that existed before the abuse, that existed before the trauma, existed before, whatever that experience was in school or on the playground, or the culmination of all of that, all of those things, say from where what I do, where I sit, in what I do with coaching and emotional release work, etc., is I see that once you've acquired, let's say, a negative trapped emotion, like let's say betrayal or abandonment, you will continue to attract those same people and situations in your life like a magnet. And so what happens is that when you heal, you have to unheal like an onion, because it's over and over you find people to abandon you. Over and over you find people that betray you. And so what that actually is another person or opportunity to allow you to work through the original pain that you need to heal with. And I've talked about it here before. You always have that girlfriend or guy friend or whatever, and they date the same person over and over and over again. It's always the same asshole. It's always the same asshole with the same characteristics that use and abuse and whatever. Well, what that is is you have attracted that person into your experience to try and help you heal from those traumas. And over and over and over again, it squeezes and it squishes and it tries to mold you to try to work through the original trauma, the original abuser. So let's say you have a narcissistic mother. You will date narcissists squeezing you and squeezing you and squeezing you until finally you wake up one day and say, you know what? Said, oh, he had to restart his internet, just crashed. He said, he just emailed me, squeezing you to try to get you to heal from it. Like, are you sure you still want to date that person? Are you sure you want to get married to that kind of person? Are you sure you want to keep having that sort of friend or that sort of boss? And so you actually, on purpose, invite those situations back into your life because you want to heal and learn that lesson once and for all. And so the situations around you, you have actually orchestrated because you came here to learn something, which is mind blowing. But also, when you recognize that you have brought every single experience into your life for your own healing and purpose, then you are not a victim to it, which is so amazing and so awesome, because who wants to be a victim? No one wants to be a victim. And he's back. I've been
Nah.
I've been holding court since your internet blew up, and which is all good. So basically I was talking about the fact of that we kind of bring things into our experience to help us to heal from them. But what you're doing out at your facility is you do one-on-one, you do consulting, you do mentorship, um, to help people, I guess, maybe expedite or I don't know, be guided as with a coach when you can't see it, which most people, like I said at the beginning of this, you can't even see how screwed up you are because you just think that you're you. You just know you're getting your anxiety, depression, post traumatic stress, bipolar 2. You just can't get out of your own way. And so it's like you're either going to die in the same situation or physically or have someone help you.
Hmm. Yeah. It's very difficult to go through this alone. It's like putting together a puzzle, but you're looking directly over it, right? You're like an inch or two above it. Yeah.
Right.
You can't see the pieces. And I think earlier you said something like, I thought, or you thought, or somebody else thought, this is just the way I am, right?
Yep.
It's just this way.
It's
That's
just the
the
way I
only way
am.
that I've known it. Like when we go through this pain as children and we adapt to it as children, that's when our perception, our neurological systems, our emotional circuits are all developing. So it develops in relationship to that adaptation. It's kind of like, well, the analogy is like your neural connections. The more that they get fired, the stronger and deeper they become, the easier energy flows through it or information
Mm.
flows through it. Like a river that's been flowing for millions of years. The water just goes through it quick and easy and it doesn't think about it. There's no second guessing. And if we want to start to channel something else out there, first thing we have to do is really understand how the water's flowing, how the information's flowing itself. It's very challenging to do that alone. So having somebody else there with you who can help you identify these patterns and help you to build a practice where you can really look at this way that the information's flowing and challenge it in a sense, or question it compassionately, like get very curious about it, identify it, recognize it, and get very curious about it. It goes so much faster when you have somebody who can
Yeah.
help you identify it and work through it together.
Yeah, when I went through my whole figuring out that I had avoidant attachment, it took me 2 months. Where if I was with somebody, they probably would have went, like, and you're doing this, and not that 2 months is a long period of time to undo that. Not that it's completely undone, but at least figuring it out. But
Mhm.
yeah, and it's painful and it's lonely and you feel like you're the only one. Thank God for books, which obviously means you're not the only one because there's a whole damn book written about it. But what does it look like to come and work with you? Like if I were to physically be in Portland, or if I were to visit, and like, is there a place to stay there? What does it look like?
Mhm. Yeah, well, first thing you mentioned was just like the belief that I have to make myself small and agreeable and please people. There's a very common belief that comes from trauma as well, which is I have to be strong. I have to be able to do this myself. I have to go through it alone, so on. So that's just another example of a belief that a core belief about ourselves that can really get in our way or can keep us in that exact same pattern. When people want to work with me, if you want to do it in person, yeah, obviously you have to come to Portland. We live in like a residential area and we have a really nice yard, a wonderful space where we work out of, where we have a studio out there. So usually people will get accommodations and lodgings. And what we do is we prepare virtually, kind of like what we're doing right now,
Hmm.
for weeks leading up to it. And then depending on how long they want to stay, resources and capacity depending, sometimes I'll stay for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, and we'll do daily intensives where we go deep into this space. Now, when people come out here, usually they'll want to have some sort of very deep, like all day long intensive experience where we dive very deep into this psychedelic experience. And that's usually why people will come out here. So we'll build up with the daily practice of really reconnecting with ourselves. And then when we want to go into that deep psychedelic experience, we go in with very specific intentions. We say, I've identified this pattern. I've identified this belief. I have these core beliefs about myself or this behavioral pattern. And I really want to go in and I want to relate to it and I want to connect with it and I want to comfort it and soothe it. And I want to create something new. And I want this something new to look along these lines. And of course, I want to see what else might come out of this when I'm connecting with it. So
Hmm.
that's what we do while we're here in Portland. We're actually in the process right now of building into a retreat style setting where there will be
Oh,
accommodations and we'll be
nice.
very far removed from all of the noise and the city lights. And yeah, so we're working on that right now.
So when you say psychedelic, just to be clear to everybody, are you talking ayahuasca? Are you talking meditation? Are you talking psilocybin? Are you talking all the above or whatever is necessary, whatever a person's comfortable with? Like to what extent are you truly talking psychedelics?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't work with very many psychedelic substances. Ayahuasca, for instance, I view in very high respects, and I don't. I choose not to take it out of its home. Right, I don't move it from a different location. While I do have a relationship built with ayahuasca, I don't facilitate those. On the other hand, there's increasingly growing legislation coming around the entire United States around things like psilocybin. And in Oregon, they passed really unique and constantly fluid and changing regulations here as well, where one, they decriminalized psilocybin, and
Really?
yeah, and two, they made it legal to do psilocybin services, is what they call them, not therapy. So not what we do. We do therapy. They have service centers, is what they call it, where you can go and you can buy lab grown mushrooms at a premium price and consume them on site with somebody who is trained to sit with you, to trip
Hmm.
sit for you. So that's available here in Oregon. That's not what we do.
Okay.
But on the other hand, mushrooms grow very fluently here in Oregon. And with all this legislation, there are about 5 stores that you can go to within a half a mile of where I live that'll give you everything you need to
Right.
buy exactly what you need.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. What if I'm doing this visit long distance? Is that a one off? Is that a one day? Is that a one week? Like, what does that look like if I want to sign up for a long distance experience?
Mhm. Yeah, the vast majority of people that I work with come from out of state or come from, different countries even. So again, we'll do all the preparations beforehand virtually like this. So we'll really start to take that inventory and figure out what's going on in here, where are the disconnections, where are the adaptations, and we'll start to build a practice to cultivate that agency, choice, responsibility. Then when you come out here, everybody's regimen that we build looks somewhat different. And
Oh, no.
it's dependent on each individual. Serious. Did that just cut out again?
Just for a
Did
second.
I lose you? Oh, okay, great. We have such finicky internet these days. I don't know what's going on with rolling blackouts of power and internet, but it's getting much more common.
That
So
stinks.
yeah,
You're fine. It was just a second, but I was like,
yeah.
uh-oh.
See, see, there's a pattern for me right there, which is anger is always very quick. It comes so fast and easy, and I see it as that threat. But we can work with those things.
Well, you know what it's so funny, like when you're talking about like rewiring and neural pathways and all that stuff. And I love the fact that these words are becoming so much more accessible to just common folk.
Mhm.
But it's even like brushing your teeth with your left hand versus your right.
Yeah.
We're so like, and that is how your brain works with people. Your brain works with people is just like you brush your teeth with your right hand. Your brain says, I am going to make this person comfortable no matter what, at the expense of all of my comfort.
Yeah.
That person's comfort is more important. And what you're doing is you're challenging those neural pathways, you're challenging those ways of belief systems and those ways of thinking when that isn't what we do in the normal course of a day or a week or a lifetime. And I love that people have an opportunity to meet with someone like you, because I think that therapy definitely, like therapy meaning psychiatrists, psychologists, things of that nature, um one-on-one session once a week, where they give you, thank goodness they're starting to give more and more tools. It's starting to become more hands-on, if you will. But we need those things to challenge our belief systems, because our egos are so want us to stay exactly the way we are because it's safe. We know what is the statement, like I would rather continue to be in pain the way I am than the unknown. Like
Mhm.
the unknown is way scarier than the screwed up way I'm doing it every single day, right? And I just love that people have these opportunities with people like you, and Claire. We didn't talk about her. I talked about her when you disappeared because
Mhm.
I wasn't sure if you were coming back. Claire is a partner of yours that does this work as well, at your facility.
That's right. Yeah. We do all of our sessions in person with the two of us. Well, there's actually three of us. There's Miss Layla as well.
And Layla,
Um,
yes.
yeah. She's 15 and a half years old now, Beagle
Oh my
Boxer.
goodness.
And she's spent years, the vast majority of her life, working with people in this capacity.
Wow.
She was probably my biggest teacher. And when I started working in the hospitals, I took her with me. She just really wanted to do it, and she worked with so many patients. In fact, when we're walking around in Portland, it's very common that she'll get noticed by somebody while we're walking around. Oh, it's Layla, and
It's Layla.
yeah, she's so happy about it.
I
So
love
yeah,
that.
there's three of us, and yeah, what you mentioned earlier, Meredith, is yeah, these pathways, they get so ingrained in us, and the energy flows just so quick and easily. And
Hmm.
it's not that we want to, like, if it's anger, for instance, we don't want to let that flow and then fight whatever is coming out with that anger. What the real question or the real challenge is can we notice when that pathway gets activated? Can we identify it and recognize it, accept that it's here, and then choose something different? And the something different is to express those needs that we had, those unmet needs, in constructive or healthier ways.
It's so good. One of the things that helped me with anger is I laugh at it. That's the only thing, just a coach to coach.
Hmm.
That's the only thing that I have ever found that transmutes anger, is just laughing at it. Like, this is so freaking ridiculous. I'm just going to
Yeah.
laugh at it because it's just so dumb that in the middle of our podcast recording, of course, the Wi-Fi goes out. Like, I laugh at it like, I got it. I hear you, universe. All right, all right. I needed to have this happen so that Meredith can tell me to laugh at my anger, since it's my
Sure,
thing.
sure.
Like, you never know why things happen, but I
Yep.
do try to. That's the only thing I've ever found is laughing at it. But
Hmm.
thank you so much for being here with us today over in podcast world, and we're live at Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. So thanks for everybody that's watching out there and listening. Do you have anything that you want to promote or talk about outside of your? I told everybody psychedelic-integration.net, where they're going to find all your blog posts and offerings. Is there anything else that you want to mention?
The only thing that I would like to communicate is one of my teachers says that we're not responsible for the things that happen to us, for the world that shaped us, but we are responsible for the minds that we have that shape the world. So
I
I
love
would like
that.
to encourage every single person to take time out of your day to step away from all the busyness, all the noise, all the distractions, and to turn our attention into our internal experience and to try to cultivate some responsibility and some agency and choice in how we're living our lives. And I think if enough people start to do that, we can start to see some really big changes in our world. Healing is, of course, an individual task, but it's also a collective task. And the more of us that continue to do this, the easier it'll be for more individuals to participate as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with us today, Julian. You're just a breath of relaxing fresh air. So,
Thank you.
um, all right, everybody, I will see you back here next week and start your healing. Go check out Julian at psychedelic-integration.net, and I'll see you guys here next week. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredythwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredyth with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredyth with a Y. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.